Sunday Taylor, Robin von Herman. Also joining us via telephone is Lisa Grimshaw, who is serving time at Framingham State Prison for conspiring to murder her husband.
We were together for 5 years altogether, and then I was married to him for 2 years. The beatings started at the beginning of the relationship. They didn't get too violent at first. It was just hitting and punching, but I had been pretty used to that because I had grown up with it most of my life. So I really didn't know the difference of what was right and what was wrong. I just thought that was like a way to show love, so to speak.
What kinds of things would trigger it, and what would he do?
There was like 3 major attacks with him. I had been pregnant, and with his son, and he attacked me. He had me on the bed, and he had a knife to my stomach. He was going to cut the baby, and then his brother had to get him off of me, and the cops were called in. The cops were also called in on another time when he attacked me with a hammer. I had been hammering my window shut at the time because I had a restraining order and he kept on violating it. And so he came through I was hammering the window shut. It was the middle of summer. And he came through the window, and I had the hammer on the table, and as he came to the door, he grabbed the hammer and went after me, and I had lost most of my teeth because of that. He had hit me in the face with it.
What did the police ever do for you? Where were your family members? How did you hide the bruises?
I really didn't see much of my family because I had been an abused child, and I went into most abusive relationships all of my life. So I really didn't have any family members to stick by me. I was, so to speak, on my own for a long time.
And how about, we'll get to the police in a minute and what they were able to do for you, if anything, but what about rape? You mentioned sexual abuse.
Yeah, there was a lot of that. I would wake up and be handcuffed to the bed. He had used objects inside of me. He sodomized me. He would make me do things to him, and if I didn't, he would use my son as a ploy.
How?
How he would tell him that he would tell me to get in the corner and do sexual things to him, and if I didn't do the sexual things to him, then he had sprinkled boiling water on me one time, and then he would wake up my son. So I would make sure my son was in the room and the door locked so that he wouldn't have to see me like that. And at the same time, when I was handcuffed to the bed, he would use the same ploy if I was to scream, then he would wake him up.
Yeah, I have to ask this question. Because there are some out there who still don't understand the motivation for a woman staying with an abuser. Why didn't you leave?
See, I did leave, and he followed me everywhere I went.
So in other words, you couldn't leave.
I did everything. I had gotten restraining orders. I have called the police umpteen times. They didn't even come to my house anymore. They got tired of me.
Mm-hmm.
And through the courts, the restraining orders back, I've been in prison for 6 years. The restraining order back then was not the same as it is now. I don't even know how it is now, but I hear it's different. They would come and pick him up and drop him off down the street, and things just wouldn't change. He would be back in 5 minutes, and I would tell them this. You know, he was arrested for assault and battery and attempted murder with the hammer incident, and he had told me if I was to pursue that in the courtroom, then he would kill me. And
what happened? What happened the day that he was murdered, Lisa?
The day that he was murdered, I had been beaten by him for the past 2 days, and he was at my house every day trying to get in the door, and I had been calling the police at various occasions during those 2 days. He had came around and trying to get in the house, and he used my son to open up the door a few times. Then he had kidnapped my son, and I had gone to get my son. And I went down to his house to get my son, and during that time, we were fighting, and we were in the driveway. And I had just changed the locks on my door and my windows and so that he wouldn't be able to get in. But I had done that many times. And so I didn't want to give up my keys, but he wouldn't give me my keys. So during that time, we were fighting in the driveway, and he was hitting me in the face with the keys, and I just didn't want to give up the keys. He had told me prior to that I was on the phone with him, and he was threatening me, and he told me, this is how I knew he was in the house. He told me what color underwear I had on the night before. He had been watching me sleep. And I didn't know how he got in the house, but he had. So I didn't want to give him my keys. But eventually I did, because he kept hitting me in the face with them. And I got my son in the car, and I had another set under my mat on the floor, because that way I knew this had happened before on numerous occasions, so I had another set there. And I locked all the doors, and I was trying to get away from him, and he was hanging on the door handle. And as he was doing that, then I got back home. He had come to my house, trying to get in the house. I had called the police. The police didn't come. So then these two men that I had met prior to that were there at various occasions when he had called me, when he had threatened me, when he tried to get in the house. And they had told him that he just better leave me alone, or they were going to break his legs or, make idle threats to him. He did not listen to them at all. So
were these two men relationships that you had?
No. They were just acquaintances that I had met. So they had told me that, well, why don't we do something, And I said, I didn't believe them because other people had told me that they were going to help me, but they never did, So then we were at the house, and they came to the house, and they said, well, why don't we go do something? Why don't we get him? So I went down. I drove down to where he worked, and I had picked him up, but I had dropped the men off previously. Now, I know I could have turned the car around, and I don't know why I didn't to this day, But
because you knew that once he got to those two men, they were going to hurt him.
Yes.
Did you know they were going to kill him?
No. I really didn't know that they were going to kill him.
You thought they were going to frighten him?
Right, and just hurt him, to leave me alone. I wanted the abuse to stop, and he just wouldn't stop it. No matter, I went through every court system that there was. I had a restraining order, the police, everything that I could possibly do, and this man wouldn't leave me alone.
So, Lisa, is the bottom line that in beating him, they killed him?
Yes.
Is that it?
Yes,
Is that what happened? And where's your son now?
My son is with my sister, and has been with her for 6 years now.
And I take it you've started the petition process?
Yes, we have.
All right, I want you to stay on the line. We'll be
Okay.
back to you. But Sunday, did you ever get to a point with your abuse that you could have killed your husband? That you thought of it?
No, I really didn't.
No?
Well, what happened with my situation is that my husband came into my home. Okay, he broke into my house. I really never thought he was a dangerous person, until he broke into my home the night he was killed, He came in and poured gasoline all in my bedroom, and then he had a knife in the other hand, and I was cut in the process. I don't know how he ended up dead and how he got cut, but he also was cut in the chest.
I was reading with what Janet, our producer, had done, that as he climbed out the window,
No, he was trying to jump out the window.
you saw that he was bleeding at that point?
Yes,
is that right?
when he came away from the window, he was bleeding, and then he went down to the floor.
So
okay.
Go ahead. Do you think you think he fell on the knife or hurt himself somehow?
Yes.
Can you? Is it too much pain for you to show us the scar you have on your neck?
Oh, it's on my neck.
For the way he sliced you that night?
Yeah, right here.
Okay. What other things did you go through?
He was very jealous. I could not go out the house. If I went out the house, he would follow me. He would call my girlfriends to find out where I was. And that's what made him get really angry, because I left the house. And when I came back to the house, I would have to come into an argument with him.
And he would beat you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What, did he beat you with his hands? Did he?
He used objects.
He did?
Yes, boards, and he would beat me with his hands.
Any bruises? I mean, did you?
I had bruises.
What did you say to friends and others? Did you tell them?
No, I really didn't. Being abused in a situation like that, and you're trying to make your life together, and you got your kids involved, and I was thinking in my mind that things would get better.
Would he apologize? Sometimes?
Sometimes, but not always.
Would you believe him when he apologized, and would he say, "I'll never do it again"?
Yeah, I believed it.
Yeah.
I believed it.
Where are your children now, and how have they
Oh,
suffered?
they was me.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we moved, and we're doing well.
How about their emotional scars?
Oh, they're coming along much better. Much better. They're doing better in school, because my daughter was having a problem in school, and she's an A student this year, and that's great.
Did you come from an abusive background, from
No.
a childhood where there was
No.
abuse? So Lisa was saying that she did, so for her this was kind of normal. Did you have a perception that this was normal, the normal way to be treated?
Maybe I did, because I was in it for so many years, and I really didn't know I was a bad person until this really happened to me. And I never thought he was dangerous. I would have never stayed in my house if I had any idea that this man would have came to my house to kill me and my kids.
So in other words, when he was beating you routinely, you didn't think that represented
Really?
danger.
Right.
Joining us is attorney Susan Lakowski, who represents many women who are trying to end their abusive relationships with their husbands and boyfriends. And from the Women's Resource Center in Lawrence is women's advocate and counselor Ellen Burke. Call us, will you, if this is your problem and you need help. We have some here for you. Now, Robin, we never got to your story. Your husband, though, routinely liked to spit in your face. Was that the extent of the abuse, or was there more?
Oh, my God, no, not a bit. I mean, he was unbelievably psychologically abusive, emotionally abusive. He would throw, first thing that would go would be my eyeglasses would get smashed against the wall. The telephone would get, everything he'd like to throw and break around me. Glass would be flying everywhere. I saw him, he crushed a full soda glass bottle in his hand.
What happened on a boat once?
I was almost 7 months pregnant with our first child, and typically what would happen with Michael would be life stresses would get big, and when they would get big, that's when I would get it. And
so was it worse
especially
when you were
during,
pregnant?
It most certainly was when I was pregnant and when he would be out of work, especially. That day we were on a pontoon boat with a number of people having a party, an afternoon picnic kind of thing, and I don't even remember what it was. It was nothing. Whatever triggered him, it didn't matter. It was all just, he was always explosive. You know, would take nothing and then he'd be gone. And he started yelling obscenities at me and spit in my face that day and picked me up and threw me into the water.
What happened to you?
Luckily, I was all right. I'm a good swimmer. And
the baby was all right?
Right, and everybody came to my aid. And a couple other people immediately grabbed Michael and restrained him. And
what finally happened to get Michael out of your life?
I left. The 6 days before I finally left, which was 4 years ago, there were about 12 incidences, you know, where he wouldn't let me sleep. I mean, physically was restrained, either really with his hands or he just intimidatingly with his body. And I luckily had the money to get on a plane and come out here, 3,000 miles away.
So with your children, you have one child?
2 children.
2 children. Have they suffered?
Oh, terribly.
What are their symptoms from this?
Well, my son has very aggressive behaviors, and which are now becoming under control. He's doing very, very well now. But he had a perfect role model. And he would take it on his sister or anyone around. And my daughter, the biggest thing is she's afraid that I'm going to get hurt, and she's paranoid of that. I wish I had prosecuted that first damn time. I mean, that's where the direct natural consequence of what he was doing was that he should be in jail.
But
and
why did you not do it? Help us understand.
The same as Sunday put it, you know, he believed the words, and he was very good about, he was charming. You know, afterwards he would do everything. I mean, he would kiss my feet.
Did you tell your family?
Yes.
When?
But
down into
along the line.
Along the line.
But also, I'm a person. There's a plus and minus of mine. I'm very good at taking the nightmare out of a situation. You know, and I had children right away. I was pregnant within 3 months of our relationship. But that's the biggest thing, and the toughest thing, but the clearest thing I see now, that to prosecute would be the thing to do, and making sure women know that's the direct. His father and I both had started pressing charges at one time. We lived up on his parents' farms, and he split his father's ear open, and a number of other things happened. And at the time, we were advised by the Sheriff's Department up in Redding, California, that he should go to jail. And we didn't listen. Instead, he went into a men's violence project, which was good when he was in it. It did help. But as soon as he didn't maintain it, and
when it came out, the patterns surfaced
right
again.
Exactly.
Ellen, help us understand something. We have heard so many times that an incest survivor keeps this terrible secret, that someone who is raped very often keeps the secret from the system and from family, and that anyone is even sexually abused in the workplace keeps the secret. What's going on inside women that makes that the kind of MO, the behavior?
Well, a lot of times they're afraid to tell. They're afraid of not being believed because he may be well known in the community. He may have a very responsible job, and he wouldn't do something like that.
You're afraid you'll lose?
Yes.
How about being afraid that you'll also your reputation could be dragged over the coals?
Yes.
I mean, is it also that? And then when you have children, you add children to the equation. Does that make it even more difficult?
Oh, yes, it does, because this is their father, and often, they're crying to have their father back into the home.
Yeah.
Do you ever find women don't share it with their families because they don't want their families to think badly of their husband?
Yes, because a lot of times after a battering incident has occurred, the batterer is calling her mother, her father, crying, "This is what your daughter did to me," and making himself the victim.
So it really puts the family off balance, doesn't it?
The batterer lost control riding in the car one evening and started beating me.
And he told me, before you can get me in trouble, I'm going to make sure I take care of this right now. Pulled off the side of the road. My face was full of blood. He had my arm twisted behind my back, and he marched me up to a policeman. He says, now you tell him you're all right, or I'm going to have you arrested. I told the officer, I says, I have been told by this gentleman to tell you I am all right. As you can see, I'm not all right. But I've been told I have to tell you that.
What did the
Or-
police officer do?
Nothing. He let the man march me right back into the car, drive off with me. I was beaten some more, and then I was dumped by where my car was and told to get out of there. I stood in Brockton Court with 37 documented instances of physical abuse, from being thrown down flights of stairs while pregnant, drugged by cars 50 feet, 2 emergency room treatments. Nothing was done.
Oh,
I
it's
was
disgusting.
told this man had never done this before. There must be something I was doing to provoke him.
Absolutely disgusting. And that's why I asked Susan, does the judicial system need to change? If you get a judge, we all remember the case not too many years ago where the judge was called on the carpet for telling the little woman that it was her problem. And the little woman ended up murdered. So what about that? Now, will that change? Will judges now wake up?
I believe that things are changing, too slowly, but changing. Governor Wells' regulations on commutation show that work by these women in the last 10 years in Massachusetts have begun to make a difference. I believe that because judges have been brought before the Judicial Conduct Committee for making statements like that,
that might make a difference
things
here.
are changing.
All right, let's take another call. Good morning, you're on Good Day.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, my name is Donna, and I'm from Millbury.
Hi, Donna.
Hi, I am so pleased that this law has taken effect. I was battered from 1979 until about 1982. I had my jaw fractured. I had my cheekbone fractured. When I was pregnant and 9 days overdue with my baby, I was beaten because I couldn't do anything right. The night my face was fractured, the police came to the door and I fell. And the police officer kicked me in my leg and told me I had ruined his night. After I had gotten upstairs, I had a 6-month-old baby who I had been holding in my arms while I was being beaten. And I took my baby to the hospital. They brought me to the hospital. They wanted me to send my baby back home. And I told them if they did that, then we'd both be back on a slab. The police officer made a comment that the next day my ex-husband, well, he's deceased now, would be at the hospital with a dozen roses. He wasn't, and after I left the hospital, I ended up going to a battered women shelter who did little to counsel me, and they did little to help me alleviate the fears. After all these years, I'm still afraid of the dark. I can't go outside.
Is he out
after
of your
dark.
life, Donna?
Pardon? He died in 1984, and this is going to sound shocking, but I wish to God I had had the nerve to kill him. There were nights when I would hold a baseball bat above his head and ask God to give me the strength just to get him out of my life and my child's life. And I didn't care if I had to go to jail. I didn't care. I just couldn't deal with the beatings. I was beaten every day. Every day I had a fat lip, a black eye, a bloody nose. I had human bite marks. I have scars all over my body from the torture and from the beating. And all through this, I could identify with what was said was that I blamed myself. I wasn't a good enough wife. I wasn't a good enough mother. I was not a good enough person.
Isn't that amazing?
I'm still in therapy, and I find it really hard to talk in depth about this.
I'll bet you do. I thank you for your courage this morning, Donna.
Well, I'm just very, very, thank God that this has changed.
Well,
and that these women can get the help they need before they die. Because
it
too many
occurs to
women
me
are
that,
dying.
yeah, and it occurs to me that, we were talking during the break about women's groups sticking together with the little power that we have to back people up and back women up and give them some resource. It occurs to me that if you're once battered, do you then say, let me help the person that's now being battered? Sunday?
Okay, because I was battered, like you know, And I volunteer for the Women's Resource Center, and I work in that office every day, and I go to that courtroom, and I pass out those cards and let women know that we are there to help them.
I'm calling in regards on the men's behalf. You know, there are a lot of things that do go on in a relationship that do end up bringing out violence on both parts. I'm in a I'm out of my relationship right now. I'm going to court for assault and battery on my wife.
What in the world would ever make you so angry that you would beat your wife?
Okay, I did. You know, what happened was we ended up. She physically abused me and mentally abused me, and I ended up going out drinking, and I knew I shouldn't have, and I did end up hitting her. And
Only one time?
Yes.
Just once?
Yes.
And she immediately filed and you're going to court?
Yes. And I put myself into counseling right away. I got I have like 4 different counselors. I'm going to a men's abuse clinic, and
Well, let me back up to what you first said. I mean, I'm wondering if you're remorseful about doing this, given that you said, let me give you the men's perspective here. There are things that women do that cause this to happen. Are you remorseful? Are you sorry?
I'm more than sorry. I mean, I've lost 25 pounds. I can't deal with it. That's why, I even thought about admitting myself into the mental institution because I couldn't deal with it.
Have you ever abused anyone before?
No.
No, just this once, huh? Well,
I mean, she had a lot of, she was sexually abused when she was a child. She had a lot of problems with her family, and it was just tough on her, which made our relationship tough.
right.
And we went through a marriage counselor. She had her own counselor that I got her into for sexual abuse, and she ended up stopped going because she couldn't deal with the pressures of her sexual abuse and her abuse as a child.
Well, I thank you for the courage to call us this morning. I saw some body language here where everybody went. This isn't about men and women hating each other.
No.
This is not where we want to get to in this country, is it? Given all that's going on the Hill, with Anita Hill, with Clarence Thomas, we don't want to get to the point where we hate each other. We just want to stop those that take advantage of others. Is that it?
Respect.
The message has to be made that it is never acceptable to hit a woman.